Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. I apologize that we started a bit late today, and we're also early. This is all my fault. I can explain later if you want, but none of this is Tom's fault, so please don't blame him.
Woo!
Speaking of, how you doing, Tom? Good to see you, buddy.
Hello, friends.
All right. So we've got a big show today, because this will be part 1 of 2 on the Daughters of Khaine. That's right.
One.
Part 1.
One.
First one. Just one. And the reason we're going to go for 2 shows is because this is honestly a pretty massive release, bigger than Nagash or Nurgle in my mind, because a lot of the units changed. There's a lot of new units. The new book has a lot of different battalions and synergies. We have prayers and spells and Caradron Overlord style cults and just all sorts of stuff. So there is so much to get through here.
All the stuff, in fact, is here.
It's exactly. This is like, I think we've basically got everything except mount traits, right? Like, I mean, we've got, there's no sharpened claws for your Drake, but beyond that, it's pretty much all here.
It's really kind of sad for me. Like, what if they had done different types of blood in the Cauldron of Blood?
Oh, that would have been fun. Or different types of blades, maybe on the outside of it. Yes, different. But the point is that we have a lot to cover. So what we're going to focus on today is on sort of our initial review. We're going to break down a lot of the scrolls, talk about the battalions. We're going to kind of examine them individually. Talk about what's changed, what we think is good and bad. Next week, we're going to be joined by Gary P. And we're going to be Sir Percival. And we're going to talk about synergies and what we think of their overall competitiveness, talk about builds, deep dive on that sort of thing. So this week is more, what is the army? And next week will be, how do we make it work? Or, what's fun?
Or as Gary and I like to say, how do we break it?
How do we break it? Yes, because you're both bad people, but that's all right. You're both good, fun people too. So, but of course, we're going to start off with the news, which will be quick and short this week because we got a lot to get into.
We got a rumor engine. Show me that rumor engine.
Oh my God, yes, the oh so illustrious rumor engine. All right, let me bring it up here. Rumor engine. Sorry about the delay here. Yeah, is this even really worth talking? I guess we can talk about it. Okay.
We have 0 news items. So yeah,
it's
probably.
Fine. All right, we'll share it then. Here we go. It's fine. It's kind of neat. Here you go.
Here's a 40K thing.
Yeah.
Train. A 40K piece of train to be exact.
Yeah, although just from the look of it, I'm going to guess I can repurpose this. Now, I have a belief I can repurpose almost anything. But again, you're absolutely right. It's totally terrain because it's that soft plastic.
Yep, it's soft plastic. It's Mortis. We have this kind of pseudo fake Latin that we've seen in 40K before. We've never seen that language in AOS. It's always the stupid Sigmarite script that nobody can translate instead of this.
It's cool. That's a good call. I'm going to go ahead and call that it is obviously, this is the terrain set that releases with the Plastic Sisters of Battle. The time is up. It's showing us it's clearly a little timey measury thing. And what they're saying is that, like sands through the hourglass, the time has finally up, and the sisters have come.
The hour is nigh.
The hour is nigh for the sisters to bring death, Mortis, to the enemies of the Imperium. I've solved the mystery. There it is.
We've cracked the
case.
We've cracked the case. What I would say is that there is another clue of something that happened this week that we may have daughters coming, like Sisters of Battle.
Sure.
Other than the fact that we actually I don't want to get that out of the way. I'll save that for our review of the fact that we already have Sisters of Battle.
We do, yeah. Don't steal my lines, Tom.
But what I will say is that out of the Paris, the GW Paris, they're celebrating their 25th anniversary this week, and they released a video, like a fun, like kind of mocking painting video, a la Duncan and Peachy. and where they were pleading with PHE and them to come save them. And in there, they mentioned after they get done painting the Space Marine, kind of fake painting it as they wrap up the video, they said, in the next painting video, we'll show you how to paint plastic Sisters of Battle. So even they are chomping at the bit, making jokes about it. So
there you go.
They're coming. Like they are, for those that do kind of play 40, they're coming. It's just reasons. They're waiting for a new holiday or a new like fiscal year or something like that to drop that bomb.
Sure, it's obviously what you start your year off strong.
Yeah.
Okay. So, other news items. We have a little rumor we talked about earlier.
We do have a rumor that there's a rumor that dropped from a fairly reliable rumor source that has gotten like it's the individual that we heard that Marathi has 2 models and that you swap between them between play. This is the individual that also let us know that witch elves were coming, that it wasn't just a like pleasure thing, but that it was actually like an expansion of Daughters of Khaine. Like this is the first confirmation that it was actually Daughters of Khaine. This individual let us know that he did see or catch wind like a new starter is going to be dropping potentially this summer. And it would be Death versus Stormcast.
So there you go.
So the challenge is what Stormcast? Like that's the question that I would ask. Because we have normal Stormcast in the first starter. The second starter had our Vanguard. Are they just going to mix it up again for Death and do generic Stormcast? Unless they're doing a whole new Death release. Does that make sense? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we'll have another Stormcast release in the next couple of months. I mean, I hope not.
I part of me kind of does hope so, just because I do like to see. I love it when the internet goes crazy when they release Stormcast. It does make me smile.
I mean, I want to be like, are you surprised? Like, come on, folks.
Sure. But at any rate, it makes sense that we'd get a new starter box. It's time. Like it is time for another starter box.
Oh, so. You mean it's been 9 months? Because that's how long it was when they released Blight War.
Yeah. Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah. Like those things are again, those things are very popular. They bring people in. Having them with different armies is pretty popular. It's the Stormcast half of it that would be unfortunate. It'd be neat if they did like a Chaos versus Death thing or something like that.
How about I pitch a new idea?
Okay.
What if it is Stormcast versus Death? And so what is the new models in there? I'm assuming they have some new models, right?
It could be a couple new characters, just like what they did with it could Snail be. Guy and Knave.
Let me pitch another idea.
All right.
Is that the Death is Nagash. Like it's the Nagash undead. Like, like old sprues. Like I don't know that we'll be getting anything new.
Okay.
Maybe a Mortark, who knows? And the Stormcast, what if the Stormcast, not all of them, but maybe a portion of them are new models? Maybe we are getting a Stormcast release, but it's another 3 months out. And so, like, what I mean by that is like 3 months out on the other side of this. So they pre-release the Stormcast in the starter box and then release them individually going into the fall.
Sure. It'd be a good way to sneak them out. And the internet will lose its mind. I look forward to that happening. If you're right, that's...
It's going to be amazing.
I'm excited. All right.
Yeah. Anyways, so other than that,
they announced the new 40K box. I just want to point out we haven't seen the pricing on it yet. It's just interesting because they've said that they're going to be very aggressive with the price. It has 2 of the new little mini Night Titans in it, as well as the new Necron Cryptek. I only pointed out because it should be instructive for how they think about these box sets, because that box set is going to be, they said, cheaper than the individual kits are normally, not counting any of the new models, significantly discounted over the existing kits. So not only do you get all those at a much cheaper reduced price, but then all the new models that are there are also included.
They're looking to sell some boxes is what you just said.
Sure. And, obviously that was Adeptus versus Necron. So very cool. I'm excited for that new little knight dude. I like the little mini Titan. He's adorable. Yeah. The other thing I want to point out as a news item is, Tom, did you happen to read the short story of The Scent?
I did. I have not read a lot of them, but I did read that one.
Yeah, I'm going to transition into, this is also going to be my pick of the week, by the way. So I'm going to kind of use that to transition here. I would highly recommend anybody with an interest in Slaneesh should go read the short story The Scent. I'll put it up. I'll link it in the description. But the reason that I call it out is not only because it talks about Slaneesh, and I won't give the whole story away, not that a tremendous amount of stuff happens, but the overarch of it is there is a Slaneeshi champion with a bunch of Slaneesh followers, and they are utilizing a particularly interesting mutant creature to go and hunt for the Dark Princess, right? They're looking for Slaneesh. And they run afoul of somebody in Ulgu and so on and so forth. The reason I thought it was interesting, Tom, was because in my mind, was written the future of Slaneesh. The entire thing. I saw the whole release when I read that story. Okay?
That Slaneesh is actually inside of Marathi?
No, I'm not concerned with Slaneesh is trapped in between the two
light and dark.
Blah blah blah. That's all fine. Like we know where he is.
Yep.
That's not what I mean. I mean what the release looks like.
Oh, okay.
What does new Slaneesh look like? That's been the question forever, right? What does new Slaneesh look like? We know that they've got a ton of bad models.
Heavy S&M.
Yes. You're not wrong. It's Leather Daddy time. That's what occurred to me. Like, no joke. I'm not being funny here. I'm being 100% serious, my friend. The champion in that story is this Mad Max dude riding a chariot. Okay, like a male mortal Slaneeshi champion riding an exalted chariot.
Yep. There's a reason why I chose S&M. Continue.
His people who are following him along initially sound like Hellstriders, but they're referred to as Seekers repeatedly. And they've got like piercings and stuff driven into their skin. They're covered in leather and straps. They tighten. They like getting whipped and all of this. Like
all this is true.
And the other trick is that it also gave me the new attitude for their followers.
Yep.
Because the other question was, well, what do you do with Slaneesh, right? Because it can't be all just about lust and naked women and stuff like that, right? Like, it's sort of the general perception.
Yep.
But it's not. In that story, it is about action, right? No thinking, no planning. Yes. We act. We do. It is the sin that Slaneesh is playing on in this story and that they could pick up with is this sort of like that other side of hedonism that is to act without forethought or planning, to just go, to always seek after immediate gratification with no hesitation, no concern of consequences. And that's always been an aspect of Slaneesh. Like, I don't want to say it's not like they pulled something brand new out, right?
Right.
But they can lean into that side. And all of the followers in that particular story were male. Right?
Yep.
And they're all like these Mad Max. And it spun out in my head. I was like, of course. They're like Seeker riders and chariot riders, and they're just ripping across the wasted landscape. It is the Mad Max, like the second movie, specifically the Road Warrior, Mad Max 2 or whatever. It's the sort of Lord Humongous, like dudes in leather rolling across the landscape. They love 80s iconography in Games Workshop, right?
Yep.
Making them all muscle-bound dudes, Leather Daddy, solves a lot of the sort of more prickly issues, perhaps, right? Because they can be bare-chested all day long.
Women and all that stuff. They get away with all of it completely.
Yep. And it lets them do totally new casts. So, yes, get ready for Lord Humongous to roll, baby. Because that's how that guy sounds. Like, he comes off like that type of dude. Although I shouldn't be I'm being a bit disingenuous to Lord Humongous. He was quite eloquent in the movie. But anyway, that's it. I saw the whole Slaneesh release. So this is my call, man. I'm planting my flag. It is going to be Leather Daddy Mad Max Slaneesh release. There it is. You heard it here first.
The question is this. You love Slaneesh, but you also love painting the female form.
I'm in for this. I'm so in for this. How much time have I spent on this show talking about muscular dudes? Like a lot. Okay. Yes, I'm 100% in. If you give me this army, I will buy that in a heartbeat. Are you kidding me? That sounds amazing.
So you're
So yes, I like my own idea.
Cool. You enjoy that sausage party.
I plan to, man. It's gonna be great. I really think I'm just saying. I think I keyed it here. I've cracked the case on this one again. 2 case crackings, single episode. So there you go. We'll see if I'm right. But obviously they're gonna find Slaneesh. Like, they don't keep releasing these stories. They don't talk about Marathi weakening the bonds that they trapped Slaneesh with, not to re-release Slaneesh, right? So the more of this I see, the more I'm convinced this is coming sooner than later. Right.
Sure.
So, okay. There you go. Okay. So that's my pick of the week is the scent. So Tom, what's your pick of the week?
I'm gonna do a little bit of spruiking. And that is Vince and I were on Rob Symes, friend of the show, on the Honest Wargamer podcast this last week. And we did a review of Holy Wars, but then we kind of talked all things Warhammer at the end. And it was a nice, fun show. It was 3 a.m. for him, so Rob is in rare form. And yeah, I would encourage you all to check it out.
It was a good show. It was funny too, because after we signed off, he was like, we were just chit-chatting, just small talking, and when I heard noise in the background, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm walking to McDonald's to get like breakfast or whatever, because it had gone after 5 a.m. where he was. So breakfast is served, I guess. So there you go. I hope he enjoyed his McGriddle or whatever he happened to get. Okay.
It was clearly an egg McMuffin and a hash brown.
Why would you get a McMuffin when the McGriddle exists? The McGriddle has destroyed the need for the McMuffin.
I don't like sweet in the morning.
You're just wrong. That's the answer to that. The McGriddle is the superior breakfast food. There you go. All right.
And Relian agrees with you. Of course he does.
Because McGriddles are everything good about breakfast in one sandwich. They are your complete breakfast in a sandwich. If you want to be healthy, you could like put a little strawberry on top and then boom, fruit. There, you're set now. Okay.
Boom, fruit.
There you go. All right. Oh, very good. Both of those will be linked down below. I do highly check you or encourage you to read the story. The episode was a lot of fun to record with Rob, as always. But read the story and see if I'm right. Are we getting the Leather Daddy Slaneesh release, Mad Max Rejects? I think the answer is yes. And I am ready for it. Just walk away.
Your body's ready.
Just walk away. All right. So, okay. Let's talk about some hobby time. Tommy, what are you working on, buddy?
Well, a majority of my week has been spent dinking around, just hopping from hobby project to hobby project, not making any real progress. Rebased some dire wolves and just did some small stuff. Started building a Kit Bash corpse cart and was like, nope, not gonna do that. And then went and got all my custodes put together and primed and base coated, and I started to do my new gold and was like, nope, don't like that color, done with that. And so I've been completely like unproductive in any like meaningful way this week. I have literally 2 models I need to paint for Akon, and I went from having him primed to in the last hour I basically fully base coated one of them. So yeah, so I'm making good progress in the last hour.
You didn't just base coat him. That is your Flash Gordon model there.
That is my Flash Gordon is alive.
Flash is alive. I'm excited. All right, so myself, it's full on sisters time, or full on daughters time, I should say. Well, it's all the same thing. I'm working my way through the Blood Coven box. So I got my second. And like the problem is we don't have our basing scheme done because there's particular tools I need for it. So I'm just painting models and leaving them on their cork. I have like the Medusa. I've got my Hag done. I've got the Riders. I got my this thing, Cauldron done, whatever. Medusa riding, Shrine, because this one will be the Medusa is going to go on top of that one. and you can see it's got the mirror. And last night I was working on the this guy, the Khaine, the statue. So obviously going for a different, he's sort of in mid progress on the gold, but we're going for a very different sort of look with them. But I'm excited by how these guys are coming out. I really like the sort of green, teal, and gold and pink color scheme. The pink will be a lot more pronounced on this one once the 3 pink people are standing on it. And all of my witch elves will be pink too, as you can see. Like
really
they all have that.
pink. Like you can't see it there, but they are like demon-ish pink. Like I don't know how else to describe the pink that he's going with.
They're very pink.
I am hoping that our armies look somewhat unified.
I mean, whatever. The basing scheme will be the same.
I am not going to have any of that pink. I'm considering eliminating pink from my color scheme completely. Like, that's where I'm at. Like, I'm almost there.
Well, hey, it's fine. You do what you like, man. We don't have to have the complete alignment for that when we're putting it together. It's about 2 Daughters armies. You're from a different cult, as we'll discuss. There are different cults. We can all have our own home.
Yeah.
We can all venerate Marathi and murder in the name of Khaine in our own particular color scheme, and that's just fine. Okay. So I'm excited about this. Like, as I pointed out to you separately, Tom, and we mentioned on the show previously, that like Blood Coven box set, the hero box.
Yeah, the hero box. Trademark. The hero box, trademark.
Hero box, yes. It is the most ridiculous deal when it comes to this stuff, because you get an overwhelming amount of things and heroes, like more than you'll likely ever need, to be frank.
Yep.
An uncomfortable amount of heroes, which I'm looking forward to.
Well, we like to say all the heroes.
All the heroes, yeah. As well as probably more statues than you'll ever use too, but hey, why not?
That's so true. I'm struggling to include an actual statue in a list.
If you're very concerned with drops, statues are going to be a problem. But if you're not, they're not, right? Like that's one of the things.
Drops, like reliability. Like they can't actually be reliable like you need them to be.
Well, we'll talk about that. Yeah. That's not true necessarily, but that's probably a next week show discussion.
Okay. Yeah.
So shall we just jump right into this Daughters of Khaine review? I've got all the war scrolls teed up. I thought we would start by just kind of going, we'll just bounce through the scrolls, talk about them real quick, talk about the changes if they're new, talk about what we like, what we don't like. Then we'll talk through battalions, all that kind of stuff, right? Again, I don't want to, I'll share the scrolls. I can't share like the battalions and that kind of stuff for reasons. You can buy the book or whatever. Sorry. And we'll go from there. Make sense?
Yep.
All right. So I feel it's only appropriate we start with, the most obvious one. And that's going to be
how the actual faction functions.
Well, no, we're going to start with witch elves. I'm going to start with the individual scrolls. Unless you want to,
like, we need to talk about the mechanics of the actual army, right?
All right, that's fine. Yes, let's start there. So let's talk about the mechanics of the army. A fair point. I was going to jump into scrolls, but you're correct.
You're way too excited about this. Dial it back, son.
I'm very excited. Okay, we'll talk about the actual allegiance abilities, right, and how it functions. So overall, they have a super death save, fanatical faith, 6-up damage prevention save, wounds and mortal wounds across the army, period. Right?
Yep.
That's where we start. We talked about that previously. I think everybody knows that. The difference between this and the death save is that death requires a hero within 6 inches.
Yeah.
The girls do not.
Just, you get a special save, and you get a special save, and everybody gets a special save.
Yep. And there are ways to manipulate that save, obviously, later on.
Yep.
But let's assume it's 6+.
Yep.
The other big mechanic is the blood rights table, right? Which is keyed to the number of rounds, to the current battle round.
Yep.
And you get a cumulative series of bonuses based on the current round. And some of this has been shared online freely, but effectively in turn 1, it is reroll run rolls of 1 for all units. In turn 2, you also can reroll rolls of 1 for charges. In turn 3, it's all hit rolls of 1 across the army. As well, all of the avatars of Khaine become active They're automatically animated. We'll talk about what that means later. In turn 4, it's all wound rolls of 1, and in turn 5, it's all save rolls of 1, and everybody army-wide is immune to battle shock.
Yep.
Right. Now, under the normal progression, this is interesting because this army is a glass cannon-y army, although there are a couple very defensive builds we've talked about, and that'll be a next week. But on the whole, just taking the scrolls at face value, it's very glass cannon-y, right? What we're going to see here is a lot of 6-up and 5-up saves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of single wound models. When you look at the wound to point ratio, there are no gore gruntas in this mix, right? That's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah. You were in the wrong army if you're expecting that.
Right. Now, and so one of the things you might think is, well, that table, how much of this army is even going to be alive in turn 3 and 4 to get the really good bonuses of hit?
That's a consideration. I mean, but that said, you can manipulate that table like you could manipulate the saves.
Exactly. So again, we'll touch on them as we go through them, but there are basically 3 different ways to manipulate that that table as far as what battle round it is considered to be, some of which are very interesting. So that's the general allegiance abilities, right?
Yep.
Okay. What else do you want to cover in the generic stuff before we jump in?
I would dive into temple probably. Like okay. I would do the temples next because those matter.
Yep, absolutely. So much like if everybody is familiar with Caradhran Overlords have their, what are they called? Barracks? Are they all barracks?
They're skyports.
Skyports. Okay, there you go. So they have their skyports, which effectively is like Ziflin and Urbaz and these places, and they give you a sort of set of special abilities, right? Yep. They are largely additive to anything else going on in the army,
yep.
But the army doesn't have a full set of other things going on in the army, so they kind of are some of those things, right? This has a similar play. One thing I didn't mention up top is that this Daughters of Khaine book is gorgeous. Like the Nurgle and the Legions of Nagash book before it, it is stunning. The art in this is some of my favorite art I have seen, period. I mean, obviously, I'm much more sympathetic to this art than I am to Nurgle art or
Nagash art. But just the artists, what it says, that the artists are knocking out of the park.
Yeah, the painting guide, again, was really good. I appreciated it's like step-by-step on the different kinds of skin. Yep. And on the different kinds of freehand for the symbols, for the cults and stuff. So they're really doing a great job with these new books. I will openly admit I haven't made my way through all the fluff in the book yet, but I like the stories I've read.
Yeah.
I did start with the rules on this one.
Of course you did.
Sorry.
I know you're super excited about it and you want to play it. And by playing it, you need to know what you need to paint.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I channeled my inner Relian and started from the back of the book instead of the front. But so the cults function a lot like the sky parts, and there are 4 cults that have rules around them in the book. So we have Drakey. I'm going to mispronounce these, I'm sure, but we have Drakey, Ganeth, Hagnar, Caliabron, and Kraith. Right?
Yep. So
shall we just kind of talk through these?
Let's just talk through them. Let's not focus too much on the battalion bonuses, because what we'll do, because all these also have like additional bonuses that they get with battalions, certain battalions. And so when we cover battalions, we'll note which of these temples gain bonuses with that battalion.
Right.
Because us just mentioning a battalion is not helpful right now.
Right. I agree. So if you read the community article around the cults, you should be familiar with them sort of in concept, because they shared the fluff and the art. Which again, the art is so freaking good. Like the witch elves the witch elf picture for Hagnar is so amazing. But anyway, let's start with Hagnar, since that's kind of the first temple.
Yeah.
Right. That's the idea of the thing.
Yeah.
And
it's very the one Marathi personally founded.
Right. Exactly. So Hagnar, what we see in some of these is generally there is some ability you get, right?
Yep.
Some modification to a battalion, usually the ability to include extra stuff. And like I said, we'll come to that later.
Yep.
And this is the interesting part. either an automatic setting of your command trait or your artifact.
Yep.
Right? So it's interesting because there are artifacts and command traits in the book, obviously.
Yep.
But if you take one of the cults that automatically set your command trait, it effectively removes the choice from the table. And instead, you must take this command trait, right? That is what your general will have, unless your general's Marathi, in which case you won't have any, probably.
Well, yeah. What Vince says probably is because it's unclear, like, because it's must language versus may not language. We're unclear if Marathi gets a command trait if she takes, like, if she's Hagnar, which is the thing that she founded, it would make sense for her to be the general. And we have the may not have a command trait language of named characters combating the you must have a command trait when, like, your general must have this command trait. And so we're not sure if she gets it or if she's not allowed to be general. From fluff wise, it wouldn't make sense that she's not allowed to be general. Yeah. Anyways, so there's debate right now, and we're hoping that the FAQ in a couple of weeks will clear that up.
Right. Which it's, I know that question's been submitted, so I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
So Hagnar's ability is pretty straightforward, right? Basically, when they're benefiting from the third level of your blood rights, so from battle round 3 on, or if you've accelerated it, but whatever, whenever they're benefiting from that level or higher, they reroll all failed hit rolls, army-wide, instead of only hit rolls of 1.
That's so amazing.
It's
good night. That's so good.
Yep. Army-wide reroll hit rolls.
Yeah, we'll get to this later, but there are some units that are just bonkers already. And so if they're getting reroll hit rolls, like, good night.
And then this one automatically sets your command trait, right?
Yep.
And the command trait is Devoted Disciples. Whenever you make a Fanatical Faith roll for a friendly Hagnar unit within 7 inches of the general.
Yep.
Okay. So it's a unit within 7 inches, not wholly within.
Yep.
So you can do your Tom has been playing with a 7-inch 5-up ward save forever. That was his Nurgle trick. Effectively, he can do it here again because the wound is negated on a 5+ instead of a 6+. It gives Tom his same trickiness he was doing with his Nurgle stuff.
It does. Can you guess? Can you guess that this might be my favorite of the covens? At least initially. My gut reaction is that I like this one the best. I like all of it. I like a lot of what's offered in a lot of different ones, and I've actually looked at, like, despite what people probably anticipated, I've looked at lists in at least 3 or 4 or maybe all 4 of the covens. Because there's good rules and there's reasons to go into each one, which is something that I couldn't say necessarily with KO.
I agree. I actually think all of these have some value to them, depending on the type of army you're building. Yep. I think the problem with the Skyports with KO was that there was generally only one way to build a KO army. I don't mean the specific units. I mean the way it played.
Yes. You could only be competitive in one play style. And for that play style, there's really only one Skyport that caters
maybe
to that.
1.5.
1.5.
Sure.
Maybe 1.5. Yes.
Whereas with this, it really depends on what you're aiming at and the type of army you're constructing, and then the different cults become useful in different ways.
Yep, agreed.
Especially with the overlap with battalions, it's interesting how it incentivizes you. But this one's potent as all get out. I mean, as the first temple, obviously the bubble 5-up instead of 6-up, and then the reroll all hit rolls from battle round 3 it's pretty great.
It's really good.
It's pretty great.
There's not a matchup where that's not going to be useful.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these are also really powerful. We'll talk about some more here in a minute, but not all of them are going to be universally useful. That cannot be said about this one.
Right. Are you making hit rolls? Yeah, probably. Are you making save rolls? Yeah, probably. Right? Like, that's called playing the game.
Yeah. Are you taking damage? Yes. Okay. Good.
Right. Next up, let's talk about Drake Ganeth, which actually might be my favorite for reasons I'll discuss separately. But and I imagine it's the one that most people don't like, so of course I like it. But Drake Ganeth gives you +1 to hit for units in the combat phase if they charged in the same turn.
Yep.
For me to really unpack why I love this so much, I'll have to do it next week because there's a synergistic way to play this that I particularly love, but where this goes off the charts in my opinion. But it's very straightforward. +1 to hit for your army whenever they charge. There you go.
Yep.
Interestingly, this one doesn't set your command trait. It only sets an artifact. Right. And so if you have any slaughter queens,
Yep.
then one of your slaughter queens has to carry this artifact. So if you only have one artifact, right, then this is it. And it basically just ups the attacks characteristic of the slaughter queen's death sword.
That's if you have a slaughter queen.
If you have a slaughter queen.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, this is one way to get free rules without actually having to pay the penalty. Just don't run a slaughter queen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's an interesting one. I like its bonus.
Yep.
Normally I don't like things that are contingent on charging, but again, for reasons I'll unpack next week, I think this is actually really good.
Yeah.
So,
there are ways to get lots of charges in this list.
lots and lots of ridiculous, stupid numbers of charges. Just a lot. All the charges. Okay. All right. So next up, I think the one that has had the most attention paid to it, I think it's the one that out of the gate was everybody's sort of initial hotness.
Yep.
And it's actually my least favorite.
I know. It's so funny.
And this is Calibron. So Calibron has 2 abilities that when I read them on face value, on paper, you read them and you go, this is the best one. Right?
Yep.
Okay. So the 2 abilities are concealment and stealth, basically -1 to hit rolls that target Calibron units in the shooting phase. So army-wide, -1 to be hit in the shooting phase. Of course, combines if you have Marathi in this list, she'd be -2 to be hit from shooting, right?
Also awesome.
Yep. And then the Mistress of Illusion ability. So this one sets your command trait automatically.
Yep.
And at the start of your hero phase, you can pick a friendly Calibron unit within 7 inches of the general.
Yep.
Okay. If that unit is more than 3 inches from any enemy models, in other words, if it's not in combat.
So condition number 2.
Then you can remove it from the battlefield and set it up anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches from enemy models. The unit cannot move in the next movement phase. Yes, exactly. Okay. I don't love this one, and I'll tell you why. There are armies where an army-wide -1 to hit in shooting is pretty darn good. You know, if you're going up against KO or something,
like there's a lot of trash shooting in there.
Depending on the type of zine, sure.
Yep. Cunning Ruck.
Yep. Sure. Yep. And there are a lot of armies where you're gonna roll up to the table and they're gonna be like
Seraphon with skinks and laser turtles.
Sure. I mean, again, okay. Like, that's not, I don't know if that's the super backbone of their army, and I'm not sure they still don't tear you up even if with -1 to hit. Like, they rely on mass.
Sure.
Right? And like a mass on 3s versus a mass on 4s. I'm not sure that's really keeping your
it's 16% of the hits, but sure.
It's not nothing.
Yep.
But there are armies where it will literally do nothing.
Right.
Just 0. You roll up against like most Nurgle armies, a lot of Death armies, Iron Jaws.
Iron Jaws, yep.
Khorne, right? Like a murder host or any kind of thing.
They're
like
just gonna roll up and punch you in the face.
Half of Tzeentch, right? Like, just literally go, that's a neat rule. I didn't bring any of that, but enjoy your that minus, I guess. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Fun times. And these and like, by the way, 2 of the armies I just named are the most recent 2 releases. And they're the most recent 2 releases that also were largely built on people's existing models. So there's not a lot of ramp time for those to hit the meta.
Yeah, arguably even like the bulk of Fire Slayers are swinging in melee at 2 attacks a model. Like,
sure. Like, yeah, their axes get worse.
Yeah, but nobody's afraid of their axes.
Right. That's not how they kill you.
Nope.
It's the wave of Volkite melee bodies, right? This in no way makes 90 or 120 Volkites or something, some nonsense thing, that much less scary.
Sure.
And then the second ability, the teleportation, which again seems people read it and they're like, oh, it's like Seraphon. Ah, it's Lizardman teleport. No, it's not.
No, it's really not.
It is definitely not that. Wheel that back. You've got it. You've got to be within 7 inches of the general.
So the general has to be alive.
Correct. If you kill the general, and by the way, a lot of the heroes in this army are pretty killable. Like if you're looking for super tough heroes outside of Marathi, this is not the army you should be looking at. Like I think Marathi is pretty tough.
Yeah, she's solid.
But like, okay, so the general's got to be alive. The unit you want to move's got to be within 7 inches, and the unit you want to move can't be in combat.
And let me remind you that if you have not double turned them, you may not have control over that.
Right, because it's at the start of your hero phase. This happens.
Right, so they can lock you up.
It's in that at the start of your hero phase, so you literally can't do anything else except other at the start of your hero phase effects. Right. You can't cast a spell or do any of this other crap.
Yeah, and so like let me be very clear. I'm so self-conscious of it now. What I would say is that like if I'm playing against this force, like I'm gonna if there is a unit I don't want to move, I'm gonna lock it down just by charging it and make sure I have a model within 3 inches. And guess what? As soon as I have one model within 3 inches, they're not teleporting anywhere.
Right, or I'll charge a different unit and pile one random guy to within 3 inches.
Yep.
Right. So sure, like, yeah, okay, I just drug that unit into combat and it can attack me, but what are you going to get? Like an attack or two on me?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like it could be so easy for your opponent to lock units out of that teleportation. Like basically it's pretty good round one because you're gonna be able to set up and move a unit wherever you want. Yep. And then after round one, it becomes highly suspect if this cult does anything. This is a cult that could just do nothing. Your general,
while still eating your command trait,
right? Like it chewed off your command trait and the opportunity cost of not having any of the other things happening, right? Yep. And like you're facing a non-shooting army that kills your general in some way because you didn't have it properly bubble wrapped, or gets into combat with all the units that are bubble wrapping your general within 7 inches. So there are either no teleport targets or no ability to teleport.
Yep.
And then even in the end, you're still only throwing them 9 inches away from enemies, right? So it's not terrible. Like that's fine. You know, Seraphon's trick is good with that.
It's good if you're alpha striking Marathi on the first turn and transforming her and blah 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 blah. Sure. There's yes, one of the fun tricks you can do right now. Let's just go ahead and spoil this out there. Is you can take Marathi and she could throw her in her tiny form, baby Marathi form, right? Yes, both of these effects are happening at the start of the hero phase.
Right, which means you as the person with priority get to stack the order. So you stack the teleport basically on top of the transformation. You shoot her to 9 inches, and then you teleport her into giant, or not teleport her, you transform her into giant form.
Yep.
And you place her new giant base on top of where the old base was completely, and she's still going to gain like 3.5 inches.
Yeah, you don't even have to center it because of the way the wording is. You just have to you have to replace it.
Yep.
Which that part of your base has to cover all of small Marathi's old base.
Yep.
So you're going to gain 3 inches in the transformation.
Suddenly, Big Marathi has a 6-inch charge turn 1.
Yep.
I mean, it's suicide Marathi. Like, she's going to get pulled down, right? Like, out there alone.
In a couple turns.
But it'll take a couple turns. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So, other than that very comical trick, which I think is funny, I think Calibron is the one that has the most chance to do the least. That's why I don't love it.
Agree with that. Yep.
Now, unfortunately, we haven't mentioned the battalion point, but it does have my favorite battalion alignment, which is
Aww.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on.
Okay.
There are lots of good. Are we going to talk about any items or prayers?
Hold on, I want to mention Kraith, the last temple, real quick.
Oh, Kraith. Sorry. Yep.
Kraith is interesting. I like Kraith a great deal. For multiple reasons, one of which is the battalions we want to talk about. But Kraith basically has this rule: Disciples of Slaughter. Roll a die each after a Kraith unit has fought in the combat phase. If there are any enemy units within 3 inches of it, basically, if you didn't wipe them out and that unit's fighting, roll a die. On a 6, you get to pile in an attack immediately. right? Again, a second time.
Yeah, it's not the best thing, but it's good enough.
Army wide, you're going to be triggering that quite a bit, especially depending on the number of combat units you have, right?
Yeah.
I would also point out this has the lowest cost.
Yeah.
In that one Kraith hero has to carry this artifact that is basically a D6 mortal wounds artifact in melee,
Which is not terrible.
No, that's I
don't mind doing a D6 mortal wounds once per game or something.
Yeah, I mean, you love that there's no trading with some people, right? And that's a D3
True.
mortal wounds. That's shooting. This is melee, but it's a bigger number of mortal wounds.
And that you can choose to activate it like after they've already taken damage. Where this replaces your attacks. This is part of your attack sequence for the D6 mortals.
Absolutely.
Still have to hit and all that other stuff. Sure. That said, like, it's not bad.
No.
Not bad.
Okay. Scrolls?
Let's talk about were there any let's talk about just at a high level prayer spells and traits.
Oh boy.
And what I mean by that is like choose one that you really like.
Yeah, sure. All right, well, let's start with command. Let's start with the command trait, shall we?
Yep. We're gonna choose the same one because this is the only one that we would take if we were if it wasn't forced on us. Like I already know what you're gonna take.
Which one am I taking?
You're gonna take where is it?
True Believer.
True Believer.
Yeah. True Believer is the obvious one that jumps off the page. So True Believer makes the battle round count as one higher than it actually is when you receive benefits from that thing.
So at the top of one, that means that you're run and charge, reroll one zone, one in charge. In turn two, you suddenly get all your rerolls to hit.
Yep. And if you're Hagnar, you're rerolling all
hits.
Rolls to hit from round 2-1.
But unfortunately, you can't do that because Hagnar is forcing their traits. You can never have Hagnar.
Exactly. I walked you into that to point that out. Yes, that is one of the reasons that that's one of the things. That's why I wanted to show the actual cost. So in other words, that's where you're paying by replacing that command trait, right?
Yeah, like Kraith, can do this and. But Kraith can do it, and Draki
Ganeth can do it.
Yeah, Ganeth can do it. But the two other ones that we like so much, which are Hagnar and the teleporty one, both of those take your command trait. So that means you can never have this True Believer ability.
Yep. Now there is one more I quite enjoy, by the way, here.
Okay.
Which is Zealous Orator.
Okay.
Which is all friendly units within 14 inches of the general use the general's bravery characteristic instead of their own.
Yeah, that's okay.
If you're building a Mindwaza build.
Yeah, like I could see that with for Mindraiser, but even then, like maybe
it's hinging a lot on that.
Yeah.
I didn't say it was. I just said if you're doing a Mindraiser build.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving all your girls way up in bravery can be pretty potent, right? Because you just need to get better than people.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
To maximize your Mindwaza.
It's true.
The only other one probably of note very quickly is Terrifying Beauty. You can give any general the Morathi sort of neg 1 to hit ability, right?
Sure.
So, okay. If you want somebody that's hot like Morathi, but isn't Morathi, you can still get that neg 1 to hit. There ain't no Iron Heart, though. Okay. All right. So, shall we talk about artifacts next? And there are lots of different artifacts for various reasons.
Yep.
Because there are artifacts for wizards, relics for priests, and generic artifacts as well. So there are many here.
Yep.
Shall we start with the generic artifacts of power?
Sure.
All right.
I don't even know if there are any of those that I ever selected in any of my test builds.
I mean, there's another bravery stacker one, right? Like again, if you really want to go all in on this, right?
Yeah, like there's a bravery stacker one.
The Crown of Woe can sap 1 from enemy bravery within 7 or 14 inches.
Yeah. The Amulet Arcfire stood out again for anti-Zinch. You get a 4+ against spells. And the 1001 Blessings is +1 for also just a flat +1 for saves. Which I mean I guess that can be okay, but there are a lot of better options in my mind for heroes in the army. So.
Yeah, I mean exactly. I think you hit on all the ones that I thought were were relevant. Relian just pointed something out that I want to go read and look at because. Oh yeah, I misread True Believer. Great call out, Relian. The True Believer is only for the general.
Oh.
There you go. Only the general counts as one higher. I didn't catch that wording. Thank you, Relian. Never mind. That just fell like from the top of my list to the bottom.
Yeah. Okay. I'm back on Hagnar.
There you go. Yes. So okay. Let's see. So yeah, I mean, the artifacts of power are kind of the generic ones, but to me, the sexiness comes in the wizard artifacts and the priest artifacts.
Agreed completely. Yep.
This is where I particularly happen to like several of these.
Yep.
All right. So would you like to start?
And I don't think that there's ever a hero that can't take one of those two artifacts, one of those two groupings. And what I mean by that is like every hero in this army is either a priest or a wizard.
That is true. I had to think about that for a minute.
So like every hero is going to have one.
I mean, other than Marathi, who you can't get.
Yeah, obviously. Yep. The ones for the artifacts of Shadow, which are the wizard artifacts. The one that obviously jumps out to me is the Shadow Stone.
Yeah.
So when you're casting spells for the wizard, they reroll ones on the casting roll, and if they are casting Lore of Shadows, they also gain +1. This means that you Mind Razor on a 6 instead of a 7, and you reroll any ones in that casting attempt.
Yep.
Significantly increasing your shot at that 6.
That's it's pretty sexy.
Yep. And then also the Crystal Heart is certainly an honorable mention. They can cast a second spell instead of their first, but but on that second attempt, they roll dice, and on a 1 they suffer D3 mortal wounds.
Yeah, I really love the Crystal Heart because there are a lot of good spells that I want to be casting, right? That being said, it's like I'm not sure that I would ever like. Yeah, we'll talk about the nature of like doing both a Lore of Shadow and like an enfeebling foe or something like that, which I don't think is bad at all. The problem is I'm not going to get both the Crystal Heart and like the Rune of Ulgu on a single wizard, obviously, right? Which is what I would want to take to fully capitalize. So it's more like, all right, probably just take another Medusa. The Rune of Ulgu being, one additional spell from the Lore of Shadows, right? Yeah. But you don't have a lot of built-in innate double casters.
Yeah, you don't have any double casters other than Marathi.
You
can't have any of this.
Yep. So,
I mean, the challenge is that's off the table.
Yep. Exactly. I want to talk about I'm just going to break out a couple more of these real quick. The Mirror Glaive, which I think is very funny. Yeah. It's not good compared to the things we've talked about, but it does make me laugh because there is actually a very funny way this plays out. The Mirror Glaive is each time the bearer unbinds an enemy spell, they can immediately attempt to cast either Mystic Shield or Arcane Bolt as if it were your hero phase. And then your opponent gets to try to unbind that. That gives you a double Mystic Shield.
But does it?
Chance?
Is what I would say.
Why wouldn't it?
Like, why is the rule of 1 not still in effect? It says you can only attempt 1 of each.
It's a different turn. I'm doing it during your
round.
As far as I know, I will openly admit I didn't go look at this, but I think the rule of 1 is you can only attempt it during your turn.
Yeah, just go look.
It's a great question. Rule
of 1: each spell can only once per turn. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, this gives you a second Mystic Shield.
Yep. So I can, I could Mystic Shield somebody on my turn, and then if I dispel your spell, I can Mystic Shield them again, right? So stack a little Mystic Shield action, which makes me smile. So the oh, that's another good question.
You are oh. Nah.
The question that you're answering right now is, are you stealing their attempt to cast Mystic Shield?
Yes, you are, because it says each spell can only be attempted once per turn rather than once per wizard.
Well, or once per player or something like that.
No, it doesn't say that. I'm reading it. It says each spell can be attempted once per turn rather than once per wizard.
Interesting. So if they Mystic Shield it already, then you can't Mystic Shield on top of it?
Yes.
You'd have to Arcane Bolt. If
You'd
they did
have to
both,
Arcane Bolt.
then you
If
can
they've
do
done both,
nothing.
you can't do either.
Yeah. That's interesting. But I do love, like, there is a couple defensive builds in here, and I'm not sure, like, by the way, we should state that this army has a very high ability to stack multiple battalions. So you can often reach deep into magic items. And in some of the, like, in one of the defensive builds, I could see taking this item and taking some swings at dispelling. Because a double Mystic Shield is potent. No joke. And then I want to give a special award to the Shade Claw, the worst artifact in the world that no one would ever take, that makes your Whisper Claw on your Medusa Rend Neg 2. If you've gotten to this thing, that's the funniest thing to me. It could say Rend Neg 7. I wouldn't take it compared to the other things on this list. So, yeah, special awards. All right, the Relics of Khaine, the priest stuff.
Yep.
There's a what do you got? What's your pick? There's a couple in here that are pretty nice.
My pick, the one that wins, is the Blood Sigil. Originally I was really warm on the Khainite Pendant, which was like the roll 3 times. You know, you get 3 prayers instead of 2 for your priests.
Yep.
But then I realized there aren't 3 prayers that I want to cast.
Sure. Because all you're doing is like using your one special prayer, and then whatever the 2 are that come on their scroll, or activating a dude.
But I already have
got the dudes.
Right, I already have 2, so I already have my special base,
and
I already can activate the dude or buff myself or do a D3 50% of the time. If I roll a 3+, and then they don't choose the right hand, I do a D3 mortal wounds.
Right.
Sure. Or increase my sword. Yeah, no, I'm just going to activate the altar if I need to. I'll use my special prayer. I don't know that this item is worth getting a 3rd prayer of my 2 bad prayers.
Right. So you're talking about the Khainite Pendant lets you pray 3 times in your hero phase. However, the first one that's rolled when you pray, you suffer D3 mortal wounds.
Yeah, and you're going to kill yourself rolling that 3 times per turn. Like you're going to start doing mortal wounds.
Right. Yeah, you'd roll it twice per turn, but yes, I gotcha.
Yeah. You'd roll it twice per turn. Anyways, no. I'm just going to take an extra spell or an extra prayer.
Or no, you would roll it 3 times because you don't roll it after. It's 1 per thing. Yeah, first time you roll
it every time.
Yep.
I would just take the additional prayer, and have 2 special prayers, and then sub in the activating the statue if I need to. And if nothing else, just have redundant prayers mixed in, because there are a number of prayers that I would want redundancy on.
Yeah, it's a concern. Like a lot of your prayer people, if they're not up on cauldrons, are really squishy, right? Like your Hag Queens and your Slaughter Queens are just eminently easily killable models. So it's not like redundant prayers are a terrible idea. To that end, I honestly don't hate something as simple as the Iron Circlet, which is when you pray, you can reroll a 1, right? When seeing if the prayer is successfully cast. Not only because that helps me get off that, because then you're on 3-up reroll 1s, but also it helps me prevent mortal wounding those girls to death, because that's what happens when you roll that 1, right? You're unworthy. It's a corn style prayer.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's a pretty simple item, but like if I had the girl whose prayer I needed to get off, and by the way, when we talk about the prayers here in a moment, like there are certainly some armies where I would be hinging a lot of my strategy on 1 prayer happening.
3-up. Yep.
Like a 3-up reroll 1 is a lot more likely than a straight 3-up. That moves the needle.
Yep. And yeah, it does.
So, okay. All right. So let's talk about prayers and spells, shall we?
Yeah, and we can talk about, and when I talk about redundancy, I don't mean like letting people cast attempt a prayer twice.
No.
Because the rules here have been changed on prayers. And we'll talk about that. You want to do prayers next, or you want to do spells next?
Let's do spells next, and then we'll come back to prayers. Okay. But yes, you're correct. You meant redundancy, like if 1 person dies. Yeah. Sorry, I was already knowing what you were about to talk about, and so
because I anticipate that some people, like when they think redundancy, like, oh well, make sure the prayer goes off. And
well, the way Korn will like redundantly use bronzed flesh on somebody to stack armor saves up, right? Something like that. But that's not what we're talking about here.
Nope.
Okay. So let's talk about the lore of shadows. These are your Medusae casters and or Marathi, obviously. So these are your spelly wizards.
Mm-hmm.
There's some fun ones here, man. We're not gonna be able to just pick one. What's your picks?
I mean, Mind Razor. Like, yep.
Nope, it's just Mind Razor. Shut up.
Just Mind Razor. I mean, there's other good stuff here, but Mind Razor is the answer. Mm-hmm. Mind Razor, it's, you know, casting value of 7 that can be brought down, as we mentioned, with bonuses and stuff and rerolls. If you cast, you're going to pick a Daughters of Khaine unit within 18 inches until you start your hero phase. Ren characteristic is going up by 1. And if you have more bravery than they do, your damage is also going to be increased by 1. This is for melee weapons only. So good.
Woo! Yeah, I mean, boy, oh boy. Mind Weza. You know, on the 7 is the hard part about it, right? Like, that's a tough cast. No joke.
But if you can move that needle, that's the key. Can you move that needle? And you can. You can. There are items that do that.
Reliant said he hasn't gotten the spell off yet in a game and he canceled his whole army plans. No, I get that. Yeah, I mean, obviously having the higher bravery, you know, if you're in a situation where the sisters are, you take the witch elves, not the sisters slaughter. You take a pack of 30 witch elves, making 4 attacks each, and they get mind razored and get to like pretty efficiently pile into something. They're gonna make a mess real fast. Like,
it's gonna be so messy.
Because that is like so many, you know, if let's say 20 of them.
If you're Hagnar, like, let me just throw out some numbers. If you're Hagnar,
sure.
It is not outside the pale to, in turn 2, have a block of 40 witch elves.
You mean 30?
30 witch elves. In turn 2, having reroll all 4 attacks a model, reroll all hits, failed hits, reroll all failed wounds with -1 rend and possibly 2 damage a model.
Yep, that is a synergistic possibility we'll talk about next week. But yes, that is you have not sketched anything impossible or even potentially improbable.
Yes.
Although it's not automatic.
Is hinging on a prayer, literally on a prayer, and a spell.
Well, we're halfway there, Tom.
Indeed.
Okay. So there are a couple others here that I think are that I think are also quite valuable. The Withering is a good solid standard spell. You pick a unit and then everybody is +1 to wound that unit, right? You pick an enemy unit and then everybody who attacks them is +1 to wound that unit. Not a bad prayer. I feel like that should be on a 6, not a 7. That's my problem with it. Like, it just feels too weak comparatively for a 7.
Yeah, considering like Pestilence Priests are getting it on a 3-up.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Pit of Shades being another big call out, right? Pit of Shades, casting value of 7. You pick an enemy unit within 18 inches, roll 2 dice, add the scores, and compare it to their movement characteristic. And they take a mortal wound for each point by which the total exceeds their move characteristic.
Yeah. Yeah, the other one that jumped out to me is the like, obviously Shroud of Despair if you're wanting to stack those penalties. Steed of Shadows if you want to YOLO a Medusa into position.
Sure.
Because I mean, 16-inch move fly, you're gonna pick her up, move her forward 3 inches out from an enemy unit, and then stare at them and kill a third of their models.
Sure. Yes, if you want to go Steed of Shadows as your YOLO Medusa build. Mirror Dance is truly crazy. It's like your swip swap casting value of 4. You're just like, you're playing like Follow the Lady, right? Because you get to pick 2 models.
Yes.
And as long as they're not within 6 inches of any other unit.
Including, by the way, allied units.
Any other unit.
Yeah.
So 2 completely alone things can swap positions and cannot be set up within 3 inches of enemy.
You know why it's 6 inches?
Of any other unit. I don't know what's the reference.
I know exactly why it's 6 inches.
Because that's the size of Marath. Which no, Marath is not on a 6-inch base, is she?
But the whole cross, 150 mil, would give you so that you're never having to push any other model.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because when you teleport her, then you could use it to push another unit like Bale.
Yeah.
yada yada yada.
Sure.
Like when I read that, and that's like probably an inch more than she needs, but this is just to be safe.
That's very funny. Yeah, you're right. It's yes. And yeah, Shroud of Despair. If you're going for like the Bravery Bomb Mind Razor, Shroud of Despair is your winner because it's on a 4, which is fantastic. Like I do love low cast spells. It's neg 1 Bravery, but if you roll the 8 or more on the cast, it's neg D3 Bravery. I wish they would do more spells like that. I love spells like that, where it's like a low cast to a sort of minimalish stock effect, and then if you hit the higher number, better thing happens. I really like that. Those feel very rewarding. I love like it's Smite and 40k works like that. And it's way more fun than Arcane Bolt. So just as a point of reference. Okay. Now let's talk prayers. Do you want to talk about the new change in this compared to prayers with Stormcast or Khorne?
Yeah, it just you only get to attempt each prayer once, and so built into the prayers for this faction are the built into these prayers is the rule of 1 into the prayers of the Khainite cult,
but only for these prayers, right?
Yeah,
to
only
be very
for
specific.
These prayers, not for the prayers that come on the models.
Correct. Any number of Slaughter Queens can do their prayer to like make their Death Sword more damaging, or to play the
Hand of Death,
to play the hand game, right? Or to animate a statue.
Yes,
any number can do that. But of these 6 prayers, they can only be attempted once, right? Which is, as we mentioned earlier, is a change because previously for everybody else, you can stack this stuff. You can keep bronzed fleshing or
what I wouldn't
give
for that rule to be applied to all the prayers.
It will be. I mean, there's no doubt. Like, yep, it will.
Well, I hope so. We're not
this
there
just
yet.
Signaled to me that that's happening. Like in GHB 18 or whenever it happens, you'll see the prayers rolled into the same rule of 1 as what should have happened last time, but whatever. Okay. So what are your picks for the prayer winners?
I know there's so many. Like there are so many. There are 3 that like immediately jump off the table to me, and it's just ridiculous. And it's ridiculous that something like heal D3 wounds is not in my top 3.
Yeah, sure.
So my number 1 pick, because of who I am, is Blessing of Khaine, which is somebody's fanatical faith rolls are going to like pick a unit within 14 inches of the priest until the next hero phase. You're going to re-roll their fanatical faith rolls.
Tom, you don't want to combine this with the 5-up thing, do you? So that way you get a re-rollable 5-up. That's not what you would be aiming for.
No, that's exactly what I do. This will turn one of those units into a 5-up, 5-up, like after save. And what I mean by that is like functionally, that's what you're doing with re-rolls on this ward save. And so that Blessing of Khaine, particularly with Hagnar, obviously, that's where it gets its own. I don't know that I would. I mean, I might still take this if I had enough prayers with a 6-up, but Hagnar, this obviously comes into its own. My very close number 2 of Sacrament of Blood. You're going to pick a unit within 14 inches of the priest until your next hero phase. That unit counts as like 1 round higher on your chart.
Yep.
And so, like in my Hagnar example, if I had this, I could make that that unit of Witch Elves count as round 3 in round 2, which means that they are now re-rolling all hits in round 2.
Yes,
that's really good.
Sure, it's pretty good.
That's pretty good. And then finally, Catechism of Murder.
Catechism of Murder is my pick. Yeah, I love Catechism of Murder. Catechism of Murder. So there's a couple of these that I want to talk about and how they work differently. Like, again, we'll cover this more on synergies, but like Catechism of Murder is you pick a friendly unit within 14 inches and until the start of your next hero phase. Anytime you make a hit roll of 6, parens after rerolls, but before modifiers are applied.
Yep.
Okay. We've now got that rules text in there. For that unit in the combat phase, that attack inflicts 2 hits instead of 1. To me, that's decent on things like Witch Elves. right? But who are throwing enough dice at it that they'll get some extra
Yep.
attacks, certainly.
Yep.
I think it gets a lot good. It gets much good on snakes, especially in certain cults, because
like
the melee
blood sisters are where this
Yeah.
like where the rubber meets the road here.
correct.
Because
Melee-
blood sisters, for those of you guys don't know, they have a melee attack 1 inch on a 4+. They do a mortal wound. The way that this is worded, they get 2 hits out of those 6s, so they do 2 mortal wounds.
Right, because you still have it to hit roll with it.
Yep.
It's not like a pick a unit and they suffer this. It's still a to hit roll
Yep.
if you hit mortal wound. So hence you would, if you rolled the 6 to hit, you get 2 attacks. So
2 wounds or
2
2 mortal wounds. Yeah. 2 hits, which generates 2 mortal wounds.
correct. And so again, when you look at the abilities that we've already talked about to do things like get rerolls or pile in second times or whatever, I think that pays big dividends when you start popping off more mortal wounds. Martyr sacrifice being the other prayer that works well with like witches or anything where you're just doing suicide units, because there it's you pick a unit and until the start of your next hero phase, each time a model from that unit is slain, you roll a die, and on a 5 or 6, they mortal wound the unit back after it's finished making all of its attacks. Right. Yep. Especially scary to like a particularly powerful melee hero that goes in and wants to just plow through your witch elves.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then, he kills like 10 or 12 witch elves if they're a particularly powerful hero. And then you're rolling and you kick back, 3-4 mortal wounds statistically.
Yeah. There's just like there's so many good prayers. So many good prayers.
Yeah. Fortunately, there's a lot of priests and they aren't that expensive, which is nice. However, if again, we'll talk about the battalion challenge. All right. What do we want to move to next, Tom? As on our whirlwind tour of the Daughters of Khaine.
War Scrolls. War Scrolls is the next right answer.
Okay.
I don't like. We have to we have to wrap up soon. So I don't know that we're gonna get to battalions. Maybe we'll have to save the battalions until next week.
Well, I think the battalions are innately synergistic. So let's cover the battalions next week. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So shall we start with some what's that?
Oh, okay. Maybe not the queen. Let's start with witch elves.
That's what I was gonna say. How about we go to the opposite end? And everybody, like, we know old witch elves. Let's just very quickly talk about. Is that coming through okay there?
Those are the old witch elves. Is that what you're intending to show?
No, they're not.
Oh, those are the new ones. Never mind.
No, I said we all know witch elves.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yep. That just looked like the old scroll. That didn't look like the updated one.
No, this is just what they look like when you download them. They're black and white.
Got
like
it.
They're all straight from the GW website.
Yep.
Okay. So to attack space, here's the relevant part. Everybody can see the numbers. You don't need me to read them to you. They have a 6-up save now to attack space. If they have the paired knives as opposed to the buckler, they go up to 3 attacks, right? And if they're within 8 inches of a friendly hero, they go up to 4 attacks.
Yep.
There you go. Like, yeah, on the scroll, quite simple. Just read.
Their base save of 6. So basically, they take the bucklers, they go to 5. Vince, would you ever take the bucklers?
On these girls, I think I could see maybe a unit of them, but I will tell you, I strongly lean toward the double.
You always lean offense. I know you do.
I do. That's my own. It's hard for me to separate out my own bias.
Yeah, like, for me, I actually would probably run a block of shields. Especially probably around my general, I would guess.
Sure.
Just so that I have a block that's now like 4 because what the new altars or the new cauldrons do. Yeah, we'll talk synergies later, but yep.
Right. I mean, it is notable that like as a protection unit, if you have the shields and you have the prayer we just mentioned,
yep.
Right. Like suddenly there can be a lot of mortal wounds kicking back on people who are attacking you. Right.
Well,
like
the mortal wounds don't kick back on.
Each time you make a save roll of 6 for such a unit in the combat phase.
Oh, right? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's a flat 6, so it's not a modified 6.
No, I'm talking about the shield thing that when people die, you roll in on a 5/6, you mortal wound.
Yeah.
So the people you are saving could kick back mortal wounds. The people you aren't saving could kick back mortal wounds. You see what I'm saying? Like it's.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in a unit that's Mystic shielded. That's 3 up, 5 up, 5 up.
Sure.
That
Legit.
are witch elves that are getting 3 attacks a model.
Totally legit. Who's next? No, it's fair. Who we doing next?
Let's go to Sisters of Slaughter. Let's try to stay like old stuff, and then we'll transition to new.
All right. Where's my sisters? There we go. Sorry, I need to reshare here. Sisters of Slaughter have one of the most powerful new abilities, I think. Oops, sorry. All right, here we go. Sisters of Slaughter. So again, they have the bucklers. And here you have the choice again between the extra knife or the buckler, right? To me, these are absolutely key for these are great MSU units because of this ability right here. Oops.
Yep.
Sisters of Slaughter can be chosen to pile in an attack in the combat phase if they are within 6 inches of an enemy and can move up to 6 inches when they pile in. An ability previously only given to like Slaneesh, Keepers of Secrets or Demon Prince or whatever. Now on a normal unit. And obviously the advantage here is you can hold the unit at 6 inches. It didn't need to charge. It didn't need to make a charge, right?
It didn't need to be available in the combat phase while that other unit was being selected if that other unit is already in combat.
Correct. So if you've got them pinned on, say, a statue or something, right, you have your big avatar in there, that other unit activates or doesn't or whatever, and then if that other unit has to pass its activation, then suddenly you can pile in afterwards and attack, right? And they can basically go in at the end without risk, coming in from 6 inches away, moving from out of combat into combat, right? Now, we should note here that what you can't do is sit at 6 inches, fight a bunch of, and have that unit that you're 6 inches away from be unengaged, and then pile in 6 inches and attack them and say, oh, well, you already passed over that unit. You don't get to fight, right? They have to actually pass their activation. In other words, they already fought or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because if you piled in on them and they hadn't done anything or been chosen to in any way, then they'll get to fight you back. Okay. Yeah, I think the sisters are cool. To me, they're the MSU addition to the unit.
Yeah, I don't know that I would run a big block, although I would be lying if my favorite list right now isn't running a block of 20 and a block of 10 sisters.
Sure.
So
one other notable thing I'd like to point out is that both the sisters and the witches have the same hornblower where they can run and charge.
Yep.
Right. They can all run and charge. So that reroll ones on the run, reroll ones on the charge. Like these girls are always running and charging if you want them to. Right.
Which is, by the way, a fantastic reason to, at least with the witch elves, include one of the battalions that give pluses to run and charge.
Yep.
And you're re-rolling all ones of run and charge as well.
Yep. All right, who's next?
Let's go to the Cauldron of Blood.
Okay. The Slaughter Queen, you want the actual commander?
Yep.
All right. So the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron of Blood, this is one of your general options, though surprisingly, as we'll talk about next week on the battalions, can actually be a little tough to get this in there. If you're trying to stick to sort of a low drop battalion build. But 13 wounds, 6-inch move, not the fastest things these chariots are, I would point out.
Nope.
But their bladed impact got better. Now it's when they end within 1 inch, you just roll in on a 2-up. The nearest unit suffers D3 mortals.
Yep.
Which I like. It was much better than the old weird way it worked. The blood shield is now, instead of being the ward save thing, it's just within this range, which is a pretty big range, right? Like
18 inches. That's really good.
That's a big old range. Unwounded, obviously. It goes down quickly when you get beat up real bad. But it's 1 to the saving throws, right? So you're just, everybody in range is basically, quote unquote mystic shielded.
Right. So those witch elves or Sister Slaughter with the bladed bucklers, which were 6-up in combat, or 6-up base, are now 5-up in combat from the shields, and then 4-up from the cauldron.
Blood shield. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. She can unbind like a wizard, and she can pray. I will say that like the Hag Queen and Slaughter Queen's innate prayers are so vaguely uninteresting.
Yep.
Like one of them generally moves the weapon up in damage or whatever, and the other one can cause a D3 mortal wounds to a very nearby unit.
Yeah,
right?
and a 50-50 chance after it's been cast.
Right.
On a
This
3.
is no blood boil. Okay.
Right.
Not even close.
That is such. Yes, this is in a different universe than Blood Boil.
Yeah. Attack wise, this is fine. What makes this thing decent at attacking is if you have the Avatar of Khaine activated, right?
Yep.
So you can animate the avatar at the top that's sitting on the cauldron
With
a prayer. The same as one walking around on foot. You still have to animate them, otherwise they do nothing.
Yep.
But if you do, then you get the torrent of burning blood shooty attack, and you get the Avatar of Khaine's sword, which obviously then, I mean, the melee hitting power this adds to this unit is significant between the fact this is your only neg 2 rend and it's a 3 damage base attack, right?
Yeah. It's worth mentioning that the bravery on this girl is 9 instead of 10. Or 9 instead of 8. The other cauldron is on an 8. So this has 1 higher bravery.
Yep.
On the Slaughter Queen. And the Idol of Worship is also granting you an additional bravery.
Yep.
So this is a base 10 bravery. So if you had any of those modifiers floating around of like bonuses to bravery or, or any of those
penalties to your enemies, yeah,
or penalties or whatever, we'll bump this to that magic 11, which makes like undead and everything else have a lower bravery.
Yep.
The reason
which means you can mind ways of skeletons.
Yes, the reason why that's significant is that when Mind Razor hits the Slaughter Queen, she's going to be at neg 3 rend and 4 damage on that avatar.
Sure, on the Avatar of Khaine sword. Yeah.
Yeah.
If the Mind Razor is on this unit itself, yeah.
Yeah, if the Mind Razor actually gets cast on the actual Slaughter Queen on Cauldron.
Yep.
Which that's pretty good.
It's not bad, I would say. Neg 3 rend, 4 damage attacks. Not bad in the world of things. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good thing. And then obviously your command ability. This is the mini Marathi ability, right? You can pick a single model in your hero phase and a friendly Daughters of Khaine unit within 14 inches, and you can make them attack, pile an attack as if it were the combat phase. So,
yep.
Very good command ability. It's just tough to actually fit this girl in somewhere, but it's a good command ability. We've talked before about how like when you fight out of phase, oftentimes certain bonuses don't apply. Like a lot of models have units that say like +1 to save in the combat phase or whatever. So, whatever. Okay. Cool. Who's next?
Go to the Cauldron because Cauldron will go quick.
What, you mean the Blood Rack Shrine or the Hag Queen?
The actual Hag Queen Cauldron.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
So what you end up getting with Hag Queen Cauldron is a little bit less melee. Same basic thing, little bit less melee, little lower bravery. So it goes from a 9 to an 8. The only other real standout change here, instead of getting the Unbind, they get Witch Brew. And what Witch Brew is you're going to choose a friendly Daughters of Khaine unit within 3 inches. They are going to, until your next hero phase, get to re-roll all failed wound rolls, and they become immune to Battle Shock.
Yep.
And by the way, yes, Derek, from turn 3 on, the
Avatar of Khaine on top of the Cauldron is also active.
Yes. The Avatar of Khaine on top of the Cauldron is always active.
Basically, anything that has this animated condition on it becomes active from turn 3 on, regardless of whether it's alone or on top of the Cauldron. Yep.
Yeah. And so that Witch Brew is just fantastic. Let's do the Hag on Foot since we're talking about
sure. You can keep rolling. I mean, it's so good.
Yeah. So the Hag, yes, so that Witch Brew, by the way, is the reason to include Hag Queens.
Yep.
Giving units reroll wounds, failed wounds, and Battle Shock is just bonkers with no roll. There's no check of prayer or anything like that. It's just passively handing out this buff.
Yep. And so not only does the Hag Queen on the Cauldron have it, but also the little Hag Queen, which this is a 60-point hero, right?
Yeah, a 60-point hero.
And sure, she dies easy. Yeah, it's a 5 wound model and a 5 up save. Okay. Like if people are going to waste a lot of time popping up your hag queens, well, what aren't they killing?
I'm cool with that. Cool. Yep.
At 60 points, I'm a buyer. Again, it can be. We'll talk about how tricky it is to get a lot of these girls into an army, but there are ways.
There's some good solutions for that. So just not in Hagnar.
If you're not careful, this army will rocket into like 1 million drops.
So
just all of them.
Just somebody all the drops.
Yeah, somebody made a joke earlier that your army, when we team up, your army will be like 1 drop and mine will be 43 drops, so we'll really even out. And I'm not sure that's not true.
That's probably true. Yes, unfortunately, yeah, it's not gonna probably go so well. Anyway. Yes, Hag Queen, Slaughter Queen is just like the Hag Queen. What I mean by that is instead of the Witch Brew, you're going to get the Unbind and better melee attacks.
Let's take a look at the Blood Rack, shall we?
Let's do the Blood Rack Medusa on foot first.
Okay.
Blood Rack Medusa on foot. She's gained her stare has been downgraded to only models within the 10-inch range. Once you've selected the unit, are getting that blast, so you need to have her really close. To maximize how many of those mortal wounds that she's going to do. But she's also picked up the ability now to cast spells, which is good. She's going to basically get one cast, one unbind. She has Enfeebling Foe, which is a great kind of debuff, reducing the wound rolls. I
really like Enfeebling Foe. Cast on a 5 and neg 1 to wound. I mean, neg 1 to wound is a pretty darn decent ability.
Yeah, that's what the Frost Phoenix is floating around with. At 140 points, she's not a bad buy. She's a 6 wound, 5 up save. If she's near one of those cauldrons within 18 inches, let's be very, 18 inches, which is not real close, but moderately close.
Right.
She's getting +1 to save. And it's pretty good.
Let's put her on her wagon, shall we?
Yeah, let's put her on a wagon. They probably likely the Blood Rack Medusa will be your primary source of spells, not exclusively, but. I found that whenever I want to add spells to an army, a single Blood Rack Medusa was how that happened.
Yep.
Blood Rack Shrine has been upgraded. It now has an aura that does a D3 mortals with it nearby. Like before, I think it used to roll and on a 6+.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, and so now it just checks.
And it's rolling against this damage table, which is actually quite forgiving, like 2-2-3 for a long period of time. You're very likely just buzzing everything around you with D3 mortal wounds.
Yep, and then also a cast. It's good.
Yeah, it still packs her stare. Obviously what it lacks, and the reason it's cheaper, we should also state this is like the shrine here is significantly cheaper than the big cauldrons. But that's because it doesn't have the giant avatar on top, right?
It doesn't have the avatar. Doesn't have Witch Brew.
Yep.
And it doesn't have what's the other thing? Avatar, Witch Brew, and prayer. Well, prayer.
It doesn't have it doesn't have the blood shield.
Yeah, it doesn't have blood shield. Yeah.
Right.
Doesn't have a lot of things.
It's a very different unit with a very different purpose, right?
This is something you're going to shove into the middle of their army, likely.
I agree. To me, the Blood Rack Shrines are there to be lost. I really do think that. I think they're there to kind of be out front with your units charging in, causing them mortal wounds or of agony things. It could.
This is where Shadow Steed comes in, by the way.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, Shadow Steed, that 16-inch fly move, lets you pick this bad boy up and re-put it down somewhere on the table.
When you want Suicide Shrine, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Who's next? You want to talk about the Canaries?
No, let's go to the Doomfire, because we're dealing with wizards right now.
Oh, okay, sure.
Doomfire have been significantly upgraded, down from their prior 200 points down to 160. Doomfire Warlocks, they maintain all that high mobility that they previously had. They've now picked up 2 crossbow shots per model, 10 inches. So they have a 24-inch threat range, 14-inch move, 10-inch shot. 2 shots per model, so 10 attacks at 4s and 4s. They might sneak a couple wounds through. It's more than they were doing previously because you didn't want to put these guys into melee previously. Most significant here, though, is their magic. Obviously, it's the same as it was, but it's still rocking.
It's still really good.
Yes.
Yeah, Doomfire is no joke. I mean, obviously the problem is you can't spam this out, right? If you have 3 units of Doomfire Warlocks, it's not like you can cast Doomfire 3 times.
Right. So So when this, just to put this in perspective, when this unit came out, when this leaked, Vince and I were hypothesizing points.
Yep. And I was like 220. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 240.
Yeah, you're like 240 easily. These things are awesome. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like probably 200, but even then they were a tough buy. And then the points came out at 160, and Vince was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's true. Not gonna lie. I mean, clearly it's good that I'm not involved in pointing things, or maybe it's bad. I don't know either way. But I mean, they're a wizard, right? They are a unit.
They are. They're a 10 wound wizard, is what they are.
10 wound wizard. Yeah, they've only got a 5-up save, but they're a 10 wound wizard.
Yep.
With a 10 wound wizard with a 14-inch move that makes 10 crossbow shots, 10 melee attacks with neg 1 rend, and casts a 6 mortal wound
and 10 horse bites. It has 20 melee attacks.
Yep. It's pretty good. 160 points, really. I mean, as 160 points go, it ain't bad.
Hey, some of those 10 wounds can be battle shocked off.
That is true. I can't argue with that logic. They are only bravery 6. That is crappy.
And it has potentially, if you have a block of 10 of these, you go to 320 points. Doubling all those numbers. It also has a 6 mortal wound shot.
So stupid. All right.
And Rally and I completely agree with you. They are both really worth their points and really hard to fit in a list.
Yes.
So hard to fit in a list.
Yep. Okay, cool. What do you got next?
I don't know. Pick something.
Let's do the Heartrenders and Life Takers.
Yep.
Yeah, the 6 mortal wounds it's pretty good. It's just, again, getting 10 Doomfires in the list is not...
And not losing one.
Not easy. Yeah. But still, pretty good. All right. So the Heartrenders are your melee, or your ranged guys. These names are... Heartrender and Life Taker does not say to me melee versus ranged, but sure, whatever you like.
Yep.
I love these girls. So I'm going to do a very quick thing here because I know we're up against time on Tom. But they built Sisters of Battle. They released Plastic Sisters of Battle. It's called the Daughters of Khaine. And I would use these girls the same way I use my Seraphim in my SOB army, which is these girls have this rule where they can descend into battle. So instead of being set up, they can place it to a side and say they're circling. And then in any of your movement phases, they can just come down anywhere on the battlefield 9 inch away from enemy models. Okay, cool enough. Their ranged attack, it should be pointed out, has a 12-inch range, so they will be able to shoot when they set up.
Yep.
Okay. And they have fire and flight. So after you finish making all your shooting attacks in the shooting phase, you roll a die, and on a 4+, you 6-inch move. Pretty sweet. It's a very mobile unit. I mean, 14-inch base fly speed, and then they can float away from me. Float away. So they can, they can bring them down at 12 inches at max range, shoot, and then float them back, and now they're 18 inches out, right?
Yep.
That can be beyond the reprisal range of many units, right? And then most importantly, death from above. If they can shoot, even if they ran. So if you are just, not descending them from the heavens, you can always run and shoot. But in addition, in any turn in which they're set up on the battlefield, not just when they came down from above, but any turn in which they're set up, there may be other ways to set them up.
And we'll talk about this next week.
Their barbed javelins go to -2 rend. Yep. Pretty good.
Oh, they have those shields too.
And they have the shields, yeah.
So they're actually 5s in combat.
Sure. Okay. I mean, if these girls get into combat, run. Run! Yeah. I love these. These are, and at 80 points, I'm a buyer on these girls. Let me tell you what. Like, I love these girls. I love them for coming down and claiming things late game. I love them for popping up and assassinating weak targets or finishing off units. I love everything about them. Yep. They're not your like foundation, but they're a perfect utility piece. You want to talk about the Life Takers? Because I think you like the Life Takers a little more.
I don't like the Life Takers. But what I would say is that I think that they are an underappreciated unit. A lot of people have written these off as worthless, and in fact, I was in that camp initially. I was like, I'm never going to charge a 5 wound unit into combat.
Right.
Like this is just not happening. But I think that there's some potential here, is what I would say.
Okay.
80 points. They're 2 attacks a model, 3 up, 4 up, 1 damage. On the charge, they go to 2 damage.
Mm-hmm.
They're a 14-inch move, and so you could potentially get these guys so that you don't need to drop these guys down from the heavens to get their bonus, their big perk.
Correct.
And there's a 4 on a 4 up, they can actually like flee from combat as well, so that there's no reprisal.
Yep. Like after they finish making their attacks. So, and if your opponent doesn't, attack them first, or if you select them later on, or you attack with them first, whatever the case may be, right?
Yep.
If they have not yet been attacked, you can just bounce on a 4 up. This is a Skaven trick, right?
Yeah.
Like, the Skaven warlord has a similar ability.
Yeah, and so I think that they offer a unique opportunity here. Because they have the chance of forcing, like the skinks.
Yep.
Where everybody loves the skinks because they can, like it forces people in activations. This introduces that idea that maybe you need to attack them first before that other thing that's going to smash your face.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that these guys still get to punch you in the face and then they bounce.
Right. Yep.
On
a 4 up, but yes.
On a 4 up, yeah. And so it creates this interesting incentive structure. And on top of that, like if you charged in, okay, they're now at 2 damage to attacks a model. If it's late in the game, depending on your temple, they could be like reroll hits, and if they were on the table before they charged in, they could be reroll hits and wounds potentially.
Sure. Because as you said, there's no reason you really have to drop these.
Yeah, you don't have to drop these. And so they could be fully buffed up with all the tools and bells and whistles. And suddenly, like in a block of 20 of these, a max size unit is only 280.
Yep.
For 20 of these guys. 20 of these guys would dish out 40 attacks at all of, and so you could buff it up. And at 14 mobility, this is a wonderful, mobile, punchy unit for a low cost.
Yeah, to me, the only downside of this is they are on a rather large base for the size of the model.
They're on 32s, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, yep.
That's fine. I mean, compared to like your witch elves on 25.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, I think that there's some potential here, is what I would say.
I'll be interested to see what people do with these. We'll talk about them with battalions, but there are a couple.
Yep.
Of that. All right, let's talk snakes. Let's talk the stalkers first. These are your shooty snakes. So your shooty snakes, 8-inch move, 5 up save. Yep. They got the Heartseeker bow, 24-inch range, so 32-inch effective threat range, basically.
Yep.
Each time you make a hit roll of 6+ for this unit in the shooting phase, the target suffers 1 mortal wound instead of the normal damage. So basically, instead of the normal damage, and so on and so forth. I think these girls are great cleanup. That's how I was talking about using them, right? Yeah. They sit back, they have a relatively good range, and to me, what their goal is to do is to units that have clogged up my witch elves because I've got 1 or 2 models that are stuck.
Yep.
Right. That have held me into combat and I can't charge something new.
Yep.
These girls make sure my combat stay clean, and then I get to go and charge something new.
As a brief side, Relian suggested that those harpies are on 40 mil bases.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, even bigger than I thought. I knew they were bigger than the witches. I thought they were 32s, but yeah, 40s. I don't have my harpies yet, obviously. They come this weekend. Yay.
Yeah, I don't know. 20 is a lot. That's a lot of base.
Yeah. If they're 40, thank you, Relian. I appreciate that clarification. Yeah, 40 mil that's a very big base. Then I was thinking of them on 32s and thinking you were gonna have challenges on 40s. That's a big base.
Yeah, it's gonna be rough.
That's Stormcast size base, man.
I know, and 20 of them. You could reach across the battlefield.
Sure. But I like the stalkers. To me, I think that their melee is forget about it, whatever. Yep. They're there to sit back in small units and keep my girls moving and charging and doing what I need to do. Yep. They're there to assassinate or put the last couple wounds on heroes. They are literally that. They are my cleanup hitters.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And I think in that role, they will do very well. Obviously, there are ways you could have them shoot more. If you're running like the Stormcast Battalion or you're running Marathi, they can shoot a lot of extra times. There are ways to build towards them just being a center point of your army, but I don't think you have to do that.
Yep.
But now let's talk about the ones I think I actually love.
Yeah.
Which is the Blood Sisters. By the way, I'm in love with the Medusa. So there we go. Look for my new fanfic coming to Amazon this year. I'm in love with a Medusa. So that should be exciting. Check that out. The Blood Sisters, I think, are solid. Their glaive attacks are decent enough, 2-inch range and 3/3 neg 1. But yes, it's all about that crystal touch. And we already talked earlier, like when you're starting to reroll hits, when you're under the prayer where 6 becomes multiple hits, because that's just mortal wounds, right? These guys are is it 160 on points? 140?
140 for the Blood Sisters.
Yeah, 140 on points. And like, it's not an impossible world to get them to almost the same average mortal wound output as a unit of Retributors.
Yeah.
With maces. Like, you're not going to be exactly the same number, but they're also 80 points cheaper. They're not as tough, but they are a lot faster. I mean, I understand it's not an exact comparison.
Yeah, like I've really struggled with falling in love with the Blood Sisters. You know, Vince and I have talked about this. Everybody's enamored with them, but I mean, at 140, like I'm comparing them against things like pigs, things like in the same kind of ballpark, like Blight Kings, who are 20 points more, Chaos Knights, 20 points more, who are all have anywhere between 50% and 100% more wounds than this unit.
Yep.
That are all on base 4-ups, where this one's on a base 5-up. I don't know. I mean, I understand the synergies. I understand there'll be blood shields. I understand all that. It's just, yeah.
Yep, I get it.
Yep.
All right, let's move to Marathi because we only have a few minutes left in our show today. So let's finish on the big girl herself. We'll start with the High Oracle. This has largely been covered, but just to go over her. Marathi, the High Oracle of Khaine. Again, you have to think about how you play her in terms of what army you're going for. We've talked about the neg 1 to all hit rolls that target her. We know the Sorceress Supreme. She adds 1 to casting and unbinding rolls, and she doubles the range of spells she attempts to cast.
Yeah,
all of them.
Good. That's really good. It's just really good.
That's I like 36-inch range, our Nitziple's Black Horror or any of the other spells that we mentioned earlier, or even just super long range Mystic Shield is funny to me.
Yeah, it's really good.
She obviously has a pretty freaking great ability to cast spells, as she can unbind 2 but cast 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, she's a potent wizard. Certainly she'll get beat by
she's a great
Nagash and Big Zine stuff, but
throwing mortal wounds around.
Yeah, she's artillery. And because of that double range thing, unless you're dealing with people who can dispel at any distance, ideally she should be able to sit way back and just start bombing, right?
You can also rush forward with her and throw her into the enemy army.
But again, completely different play there, right?
Yep.
So again, you need to think about how you're using her. She's got the Iron Heart where she can't take more than 3 wounds, but that's going to be go ahead.
Yeah, the challenge is going to be, do you transform her before she starts taking wounds? Because if she takes wounds in this form and she transforms, those wounds get doubled when she goes into monster form. She never heal.
Exactly. She cannot heal, right?
Yes.
A Marathi High Oracle of Khaine cannot be healed.
Ever.
So if she takes 3 wounds when she's in this form and you transform her, she's only at 6 wounds. She lost
into her monster form. Yeah,
into her monster form. Yep.
So there's some utility. There's some decisions hard decisions that are going to be made by people playing her.
Her command ability is bonkers good.
It's good, but I don't know that I would ever run her as general ever.
Exactly.
Ever. Unless she's getting. Let me stop that. Unless she's getting traits, then I would maybe consider it.
Yeah, if they end up FAQing it that way, where she could actually absorb the cult's command trait.
Yep.
That would change the math.
Yeah, that would.
So then we've got the truth revealed. Basically, you can choose to transform her at the start of your hero phase.
Yep.
Or if she's wounded, then she can't contain herself. So you roll a die at the start of your hero phase. If the result is equal to or less than the number of wounds currently allocated to Morathi, she transforms. And
Yep.
if she does, she becomes Morathi, the Shadow Queen. Again, the keys to keep in mind here are the wounds she took in that other form are going to get doubled.
Yes. That's the math that you need to do when considering whether you're going to transform her or not.
Right. Now, if she's already transformed into this, like if you at the top of one just grip her and rip her, whap, right? Then she's at 12 wounds with the, and you've gone first. Then she's at 12 wounds with the Iron Heart of Khaine because she still has that, right?
Yeah.
And now she's at full max power and can't take more than 3 per turn. Not battle round, turn, right? However, you pay for that. Like, namely, she loses her command ability.
Yep.
She goes down to 1 spell, cast and
the double range.
Loses the bonus and the double range. Yep. Like, you sacrifice all her spell power effectively.
Yep.
For, this for a melee beater. And, she's not bad, like, at all. Heartrender is making 6 attacks on 3/3, -2 rend and 3 damage, and her envenomed tail is a straight 6 damage when she's undamaged.
Yeah,
like that ain't bad. 6 damage attacks are pretty good as things go.
Yeah.
But sure. Interestingly, I want to talk about the gaze of Morathi real quick as we go out because this is like a super utility sneaky thing.
Yep.
The gaze of Morathi hits on a 2-up. It's a 6-inch range. It's for when she's in melee. But what's interesting about it is you pick a model in the unit she gazed at and roll a die. And if it exceeds that model's wound characteristic, it's slain.
Yep.
That is a really good way to kill standard bearers and hornblowers, right? Because you pick the model, right? You pick a model in the target unit. So you can kill out those special things, right?
Yep.
Quite good. Like that is a neat ability to shut off certain interesting things.
Yep. Gives her the option of assassinating certain things out of a pack.
Yeah, it's gonna be tougher to kill like a 5-wound hero. You gotta roll the hot 6, but
she can.
She can do it. Yep.
And she can also assassinate the hornblowers and the standard bearers and all that other stuff.
Yep. So there you go. Them's the scrolls. Okay.
We'll be back next week.
Yeah, so we're gonna put a pause here because we're not done with Daughters of Khaine. I know this was Whirlwind, but this was like 2 hours and we, have only scratched the surface. So next week we're gonna do part 2. We're gonna have Sir Percival on, Gary P, and we're gonna be talking about synergies, the battalions, army builds, stuff like that. Now that we've laid the groundwork, talked about what we like and we don't like, and the fact that just like with Nurgle and just like with Death, the army can do a lot, but it can't do it all at once. So we're going to talk about how do you actually build to that, pick the army style.
Because you're going to have to pick and choose something.
Yep. You cannot have it all. This is all these last 3 armies have been, you can't have your cake and eat it too and whatever. You got to pick a thing. So we're going to pick some things and talk about what we like. So with that, I will say thank you for everybody for watching with this early show. I appreciate it. It's a long, crazy story. We won't commonly do things at this time. It just happened because of whirlwind of wacky Eastern storms and travel plans and cancellations. It's been a nuts day, but I'm very glad we did this. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next Wednesday.